content is needs being sent to a third party. Okay. All right, cool.
Islam Grand Sheik.
Mm-hmm.
I had, I was just, I know we doing the basics, but
Mm-hmm.
uh, with the basics, I think from Moorish literature, Moorish leaders' historical message to America,
Mm-hmm.
and what is Islam is two good pieces.
Yeah, for sure. All right, yeah, we're definitely we'll start there for sure. So let me
Uh, so we are live streaming now. Islam Grand Sheik.
yeah, yes, sir, yes, sir. How do I get back to you think so recording ain't even necessary then, right? I don't need to record.
Yeah. I would just do it just for safekeeping because I don't know if it's gonna keep the live stream. You know what I'm saying on YouTube, but I would double. I mean, I think it should take it, yeah, because it published last time, so we should be good.
Record to cloud. All right, I'm gonna record to cloud anyway.
Yeah, there you go. Yep, perfect.
All right, cool. Islam,
Islam.
Islam, Islam. Rising to my highest height, giving perfect praise to Allah. Allah, Father of the universe, the Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Allah is my protector, my guide, and my salvation by night and by day through his holy prophet, Drew Ali. Um, Rising to my highest height again, giving perfect praise to Allah, extending honors to all the true and divine prophets, namely Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, and Confucius, and to the last prophet in these days and times, the Honorable Prophet Noble Drew Ali. I want to extend further honors to the forerunner and harbinger of the prophet, Noble Drew Ali, the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey, the leader and founder of the Universal Negro Improvement Association, who did indeed warn and stir up the nations. I want to extend honors to all the ancestors known and unknown, to the Moorish flag. That's the red flag with the five-pointed green star in the center. Those 5 points representing the five highest principles known to man, being love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. I want to extend further honors to the Moorish Divine and National Movement, to the Moorish Holy Temple of Science of the World, Free and Sundry Moorish Science Temple of America, to the our National Grand Sheikh Jelani Kalfani Bey, Grand Sheikh Hakeem, Islam, Islam, Islam. Uh, the divine warning by the Prophet Noble Drew Ali. Prophet warns all Muslims, governors to order to read proclamation at each meeting. I hereby inform all members that they must end all radical, agitating speeches while at work, in their homes, or in the streets. We offer peace and not destruction. Stop flashing your cards at Europeans. It causes confusion. Remember, your card is for your salvation. Failure to obey these orders will be of severe consequence. We offer love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. And when these principles are violated, justice must then take its course. Any member or group of members who hold malicious feelings towards the temple or the prophet or violate the divine covenant of the Moorish movement will receive their reward from Allah for their unjust deeds. All true Moors will and must obey the laws laid down to them by their prophet. If they lose confidence in their prophet, they should turn in their card and button, cease wearing their turban and fez, and return to the state where I, the prophet, found you. This is a holy and divine movement founded by the prophet Noble Drew Ali, and if the prophet is not right, the temple is not right. Prophet therefore is sending out a divine plea to all Moorish Americans that they do their part in protecting their prophet and the temple. This is an everlasting movement founded by the prophet through the will of Allah to redeem his people from their sinful ways. By order of Prophet Noble Drew Ali. Islam. Um,
Islamism.
Islamism. Um, so, like I said, we got a new brother on right now. He, I met him and, he wanted to kind of, get introduced to, to Islam. And, so I invited him on the call. And, as Moorish Americans, so-called Negroes, so-called Black people, so-called African Americans here in America, um, we got to understand our condition for real, politically speaking, because we technically, in fact, are the only people on the planet without a nationality and without a flag of our ancestral nation, right? We claim a lot of things. You know, the newest political term for us is African Americans, but you can't be from two continents. You know what I'm saying? Like, so like with our particular um movement, right, and organization, which was founded by our founder and prophet Noble Drew Ali. He was the one that came and gave to us the identity that we've been lost and have been without for so long. You know, we're so used to calling ourselves black people, right? But black is a color. Like, you know, if we look at our own complexion, we're not black. We're more brown, tan, coppered. You know, white people aren't even white. You know, they're, you know, pale, pink, you know. So these terms are not scientific, right? They have no basis in biology, archaeology, right? Anthropology. They have no basis in any of those things. These are what they call political constructs that were created by the Europeans and placed upon us to keep us in servitude after we were supposed to have been freed from said servitude in 1865, right? So our founder and prophet Noble Drew Ali, um, he was the one that came and told us, look, you're not Negroes, you're not black people, you're not colored folks, you know, you're not African Americans, you're Moors, right? And there's a very prestigious connection to that identity as Moors, right? Historically speaking, right? So, you know, just briefly, like, you know, the Moors were those Northwest Africans that ruled. They did more than just rule Spain and Portugal and Western Europe for some time. But the typical, you know, the historical timeline is from 711 AD to 1492 AD, right? Where these particular Northwest Africans, you know, they liberated Western Europe from the despotic oppression of the Christian Europeans who were oppressing um, the people during that time, right? These were what we call now Romans. You know, they were oppressing that region of Europe and North Africa, right? And they had been doing that for some millennium, right? So these Northwest African Muslims that liberated, some people say they invaded, but liberated Spain and Portugal and brought all the science, technology, agriculture, architecture, uh, the you know, all of the sciences, you know, from literary art, you know, literary sciences, from artistic design, you know, like I said, agriculture, planting, you know, from running water and sewage and lights, you know, for at night. Um, you know, these were the people that brought this light back during that time of darkness, right? And there's a vast historical plethora of information regarding who these people were, which they were our ancestors. You know, um there's a lot of references that I could go into that, you know, we've talked about, that point to this identity as, you know, the ancient Berbers. You know, that's another, you know, they say that the term is derogatory, but you know, it is what it is. You know, the Berbers were the Canaanite people from the Bible, right? Particularly the Canaanite people from the Bible that were driven out of the land of Canaan by the Israelite Joshua and Moses, or really just really Joshua, and pushed into North Africa from the Arabian Peninsula, right? They came into North Africa, and you know, you have a few historical references for this as well. We went over that in one of our classes, pointing to who these people are, who these people were. Now, these inhabitants of North and Northwest Africa during that time, pushing up or coming up onto 711 AD, were introduced to Islam, right? That was brought to the Arabs of Arabia by Prophet Muhammad. Now, when we talk about Prophet Muhammad, we got to understand, you know, Prophet Muhammad, who was an Arabian, he didn't look like the modern day Arabians. And North Africans today, you know, from Tunisia, Morocco, Egypt, etc., didn't look like how they look today, right? Modern day North Africans are a result or byproduct of the slavery that happened to the Europeans, right? The European slave trade and the Western Asian slave trade in particular, right? Arabians and North Africans were really at war with these European tribes for a long time, from the Vandals to the Visigoths to the Romans to the Gauls, um, the Slavs, the Vikings, right? You know, these Germanic peoples, right? Um, we were at war with them for a long time. And over the centuries of being at war, you know, we enslaved them. This is the part of the slavery story that isn't told, right? Because when we talk about slavery or servitude, they only come at it from the perspective of our enslavement here in the Americas, which was very brief, you know, in you know, retrospect and in um, you know, comparison to the Europeans' history of being slaves. The very word slave itself is derived from the national root Slav, from Slavic people, right? The Slavs, right? They were the original slave. This is where the word slave comes from. It comes from the word Slav, right? And the Slavic people are Indo-European people. So it's not even a term, even though it's been applied to us, it's not a term that is ours, even though it's put forth that way historically now, right? So these Moorish people, right? These ancient Canaanite people that inhabited North Africa, once they were introduced to Islam, that came out of Arabia via Prophet Muhammad, who himself was an Asiatic, right? He was a dark-skinned man. Um, this is also alluded to in different hadith and Arabic literature, right? Arabic linguistics, um, even in certain hadith where he's described as white. When it comes to Arabic, the term when they use the term white, it didn't mean what we know it as today as white. It meant shining, like your skin, like you could be so dark that your skin. You ever seen a person that's so dark their skin shines, especially at nighttime or when certain light hits it, right? It meant that, and it meant you were unblemished, like you didn't have blemishes on your face and stuff like that. So, but he was an Asiatic man himself, right? So we took on this new order, right? This new order of living, this new way of living that was called Islam and enshrined in the Holy Quran of Mecca, right? And with that, we ruled Spain, Portugal, parts of France, and really the that particular empire stretched from Spain across northwest, you know, across North Africa and went as far as India. And really it went as far as China because certain Islamic Arab merchants and missionaries uh um they were doing negotiations with the Chinese, right? The Orientals, or the Manchurians as they say. Um so these Moorish people, right? These dark-skinned Moorish people from North Africa, you know, in 1492 though, we lost our stronghold in Spain at Granada. Right, this was really the as they say the proverbial straw that broke the camel's back and led to the full decline of our empire. Granada was the last Moorish Islamic stronghold that was kind of holding the entire empire together. It had become fractionalized prior to that, with the Buyids, um, the Seljuks, the Mamluks. These were Western Asian Kurds, Turks, right? You know, when they talk about Turkish, you know, they talk about the Turks. These are Kurdish people, like um, Western, what we call Western Asian people. These are like what most modern day, you know, Afghanistan people from like Afghanistan, right? Very pale, right? They adopted the religion, you know, of Islam, and they began taking over chunks and creating their own caliphates towards the east, right? The towards the west, out near Spain and northwest Africa, it was heavily still dark skin, you know, up until that point in time, right? After 1492, an influx of newly you could say not newly created, but these mixed people, right? What we now know kind of as modern day Hispanic people, who are simply just a mixture of African people and European. They just speak the Spanish language. But if you ever saw a light skinned brother whose parents were of mixed ancestry, if he grow a beard, he looks Spanish. You be like, yo, you from Puerto Rico? You Puerto Rican? You know what I'm saying? They look like modern day Arabians. Right? They look like same. You put a beard on him and a turban on a Hispanic brother, and he looked like he's from Arabia, modern day, right? Because again, they are a byproduct of the intermixing, right? The interbreeding and the slavery that was happening during those times between the dark skinned African people and the pale skinned Europeans, right? So we were, um, we were picked up. Some of us were actually transported and went through the transatlantic slave trade, but a lot of us were already here in the Americas. This is another thing that is not really touched on in history, that we don't all necessarily come from modern day Africa, right? Some of us were already here, right? There's a story of this is substantiated through Ibn Khaldun and the story of Mansa Musa and his brother Mansa Abu Bakr the First, who is said that on Mansa Musa's trip to Egypt during Hajj, or his trip through Egypt during Hajj, where he ended up bankrupting Egypt for like over a decade because he gave out so much gold. He reiterated the story of how he came to power in Mali, right, West Africa, being that his elder brother Mansa Abu Bakr the First abdicated the throne in his search or voyage to the West to find the Americas, because there had been during that time and prior to that with the Phoenicians and certain other people, that there was land further to the west once you cross the Great Sea. Right, there are currents that run from North Africa. Right, that these currents will take you all the way to the Bahamas. Right, you could just ride the current, and at a certain point in time during the year, it'll take you back from the Caribbean, right, back to North Africa. Right, and you could just ride the current. So there was these stories of these navigators who had made this voyage before. And Mansa Abu Bakr, Mansa Musa, everybody knows about Mansa Musa because he was one of the most wealthiest people on the planet in history, right? A African Muslim from the 1300s. But he reiterated the story in Egypt to a man by the name, but he actually reiterated it to a certain man who then reiterated the story to Ibn Khaldun, who is a famous Arabic historian. And the story goes that Abu Bakr, he had heard about this story about traveling to the Americas. And it wasn't necessarily called the Americas, but this land across the sea, and he wanted to make the voyage. And so what he did was he sent out a certain number of ships. Right, it wasn't a lot during that time during the first voyage, but they were ordered not to turn back and come, turn around and come back until they found that land. When they went, there was one ship that did come back. And that one ship said that, look, the rest of the ships, they got into the current and we lost them. We couldn't see them anymore. So, we didn't know where they were. So we turned back. Upon hearing that, he himself abdicated the throne and loaded 2,500 ships. Now, you got to understand, back in that time, that amount of ships was unheard of. You hear, like, you might read historically that during the wars with the Vikings and certain other peoples, they would bring maybe at most 50 ships to a battle, right? At most 50 ships. Now, and they weren't big ships. Like, these are like what we know is like boat, like not rowboats, but then they weren't no bigger than I, like yacht, not like a yacht, but like a speedboats, like the size of a speedboat. It might have been like two speedboats put together, maybe that size. Maybe 50 is the most. He took 2,500 This is unheard of. He took 2,500 ships loaded with warriors and provisions. No women, just warriors and provisions, and made the voyage to the Americas. Right. So traveling from, you know, Africa to the Americas is not something that, I mean, even, if you buy into the story with Christopher Columbus, he did it. Like, he sailed from, Spain to the Americas, right? So, and Europeans, especially the Spanish, the only ones that were very known to be sea voyagers or voyagers on the water were the Vikings, right? The Spanish and, these other people, they didn't even really have their thing together, right? They didn't have navies and fleets and stuff like that. So if he was able to make it, you can only imagine what these North Africans, who for thousands of years were, they did their trade on the rivers and stuff. So they was used to traveling the waterways and the waters and stuff like that. They were excellent navigators. They were able to read the stars, plot the stars, and things of that nature, and travel. So it's not unheard of. So, a lot of us, even though we descend from Africa, we were already here prior to the European invasion, right? Prior to the conquistadors arriving in what they now know as Cuba or Haiti, right? Um, we were already here, right? This also is attested to and stuff like that. So I'm just trying to give like a little historical background of, who we are, where we come from, and the various layers to that before I even get into what Islam really is. Because, so I get into that kind of right now. As Moorish Americans, right, we're taught according to a document that we call our 101 Quran questions for Moorish Americans, right? Key number 17, it says, what is our religion? Right? The answer is Islamism, not just Islam, but Islamism. Like how you have Hinduism, you have Buddhism, you have Christianity, which is, these suffixes that are added to the end of these words. We have Islamism. Ism just means the practice of something, right? When you put ism on the end of, as a prefix on the end of a word, it means the practice of that thing, right? Um, so we're taught that our religion is Islamism, right? And that the next question is that a new or is that an old time religion? And the answer is that's an old time religion, meaning that Islam as we know it is not something new, right? Uh what Muhammad brought, he didn't bring something new. And that's the problem with what's going on between the various religions now with Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, is that there's this friction or this tension there, that Christianity, Judaism, and Islam are all different things, right? They're all different. But if you ask somebody to say, you say, well, didn't they come all from Abraham, and isn't it the same God? The answer is yes. Some people will argue against that, but it's all the same thing, right? So when he says this is the old time religion, what we practice as our form of Islam is not something new as it's kind of practiced and explained in this modern day, in this modern time. Because if you talk to a lot of um, Sunni Muslims, right? These are Muslims that follow the Sunni tradition, right? Or they say they follow the Sunnah of Muhammad. Or if you talk to Shia Muslims, right? They would say that Islam is totally different than what you would find in the Old Testament, or it's totally different from what you would find in Christianity. And in some respects and in some regards, it is, because there's certain things that are taught in the Holy Quran of Mecca that run contrary to what you will find in the Holy Bible, right? We've gone over these things, right? There's certain concepts around God being a father, the divinity, of Jesus, right? And certain other things that don't align with each other when you read or you're studying, Islam from that perspective. So when it comes to Moorish American Muslims and the Islamism that we practice and that was taught to us by our founder and prophet Noble Drew Ali, being the old time religion, our Moorish Holy Quran rectifies these seemingly these variations, right? We have no problem reconciling the the seemingly variations in what you find in the Holy Quran of Mecca and what's in the Bible, because we believe in Jesus. One of the main characters in our particular Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America is Jesus, right? And in it does mention that Jesus is the Son of God, right? The Quran of Mecca does not say things like that. It actually says that God does not have a son. But you also got to, this is where understanding the history of the compilation of the Quran of Mecca comes into place, because the Quran of Mecca is not the original Quran from the time of Muhammad, from the 7th century and 8th century, right? It had been by one of the caliphs. He had ended up burning the 6 original, what they call arufs, right? There was 6, there was actually 7 different Qurans at that time. There were 7 different variations of the Quran at that time. He burned 6 of them and standardized one according to the dialect of the tribe that Muhammad came from, which is the Quraysh. The same tribe that kicked him out of Mecca and didn't want to accept his message in the beginning. This is the same tribe of people, right? Now he comes from a clan that's within that tribe called the Banu Hashim, right? There were other clans that made up that particular tribe, but the overall tribe did not agree with his message, right? And when you really study the history, it was only unless they could kind of get themselves in positions of power within his organizational structure when he was alive. Right? This was one of the big problems with them accepting Muhammad's message during that time, and one of the reasons why they kicked him out of Mecca or drove him out of Mecca, and why he had to go to Medina, the city of the prophet. That's what Medina means, the city of the prophet, right? So he went to Medina, and it was amongst the people of Medina that accepted his message, particularly the what they call the Ansar, who are these Jewish, these people that were familiar with the Old Testament. They were the ones that accepted him as a prophet and accepted his message that he brought of Islam, right? Eventually, a lot of the Meccans ended up converting and joining his ranks because he was beating them in battles, right? But again, you'll find that a lot of the tenets that are in the Quran, especially as practiced and preached by modern day Muslims, right? Like, so for instance, things like praying 5 times a day, that's not in the Quran. The Holy Quran of Mecca does not, there's nowhere that specifies praying 5 times a day, right? There's nowhere in there that specifies that when you do wudu or ablution, right, the cleansing right before you pray, there's nothing in the Quran, the actual Quran, that specifies that you have to put water in your ears, suck water up your nose, right, put it in your mouth, right? It doesn't say that. It says you should wash your hands to the elbows, wash your face, your hair, the top of your hair, and your feet up to your ankles, right? So there's certain things that are cultural practices that Arabs do that they've infused into the religion of Islam. That they say, oh, if you don't pray this way or you don't do this way, you're not a Muslim. It's not true, because I always ask, well, where is that in the Quran? They say, oh, that's part of the Sunnah. Oh, that's part of the Hadith. And then I say, well, where in the Quran does it say to follow Hadith or Sunnah? Where does it say follow the Sunnah to Nabi or Sunnah to Rasulullah? There's nothing in there. The only Sunnah that is mentioned in the Quran to follow is the Sunnah of Allah. There's only one Sunnah, which is the word Sunnah means way. There's only one way. That's the way of Allah. Which is the way that all the prophets pointed their people towards, right? So again, with us as Moorish Americans, we're taught a specific type of practice when it comes to Islam, right? That doesn't vary with the Christian or the Jews. Modern day Christians and modern day Jews, just like modern day Muslims or Arabians, They've deviated from the true scriptures. They've deviated from the true practices. Because a lot of the stuff that you see these European Jews, right? Who, when you think of Jews, most people think of the European Jews with the locks on the side, and um, these are Ashkenazi, right? They're converts into the practices of Judaism. A lot of what they practice is not found in the Bible. It's not found in the Old Testament or the Torah. They practice what's called the Talmud, or the Talmud and the Mishnah, right? A lot of Christians don't follow the tenets that you find in the New Testament, right? They practice it's just, I don't know. It's kind of, they do a lot of stuff that's not in the Bible. Period. Like worshiping on Sunday, right? They still eat pork, right? They practice what they call Christmas. Christmas is not in the Bible. Easter is not in the Bible as a high holy day. It's not. There's nowhere in the Bible that says as a follower of Christ, that these are the things that Christ did. Christ did not practice. He practiced Passover. In the Bible, it mentions that he was going up to the temple in Jerusalem during Passover, because that was one of his rites, his rituals as a Hebrew. That's what they have to do. They have to go to the temple during Passover time. But Christians don't practice Passover. They practice Easter instead. So again, modern day Christians, Jews, and Muslims don't practice what their actual doctrine specifies for them to practice, or outlines for them to practice, right? These are deviations, right? And as Moorish Americans, we are taught how to reconcile these things, right? Um, I'm gonna go into, like the brother Yazin mentioned, I'm gonna go into one of the readings of our Prophet Noble Drew Ali on what is Islam, right? So it says Islam is a very simple faith, very simple, right? That first sentence is very crucial, because when you look at Islam today, it's very burdensome, right? It's very ritualistic, right? What they consider prayer is not really prayer. It's really, they really performing, they're really just doing rituals, right? The way that they pray is not really communion with Allah. So again, he says Islam is a very simple faith, right? It says it requires man to recognize his duties toward God, Allah, his creator, right? And his fellow creatures, right? So when we think about that, right, and we talk about the duties that we have as humans towards our creator and our fellow creatures, right? We got to think about how do we treat each other, right? How do we treat the animal kingdom? How do we treat the plants, right? And the things that's around us? And how are we, like, what's our relationship to our creator? A lot of us, we go through life a lot of times, and you know we don't necessarily acknowledge God in the things we do. We tend to do it superficially, and typically when we're in a state of need, right? Or even when we're in a state of excess, right? Somebody hits the lotto. Oh, thank you, God. God did this and God did that. When something good happens, right? Or when something bad happens, and
Peace, peace, peace. We lost sound.
Islam Moors, y'all hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yep, you went on mute.
Yeah, I hear you now.
Okay, cool. So again, we tend to acknowledge God only in times of stress, right? Or, when things happen to us or we go through something traumatic, right? But we have a duty to recognize God in all things that we do. So this is why, as Moorish Americans, and you Moors know on this call, I always try to get y'all to understand in everything that we do, we supposed to be honoring Allah, right? From the way that we do business, from the way that we travel, from the way that we identify ourselves, to the way that we teach our children, schools, all the institutions that we have, and how we practice on a day-to-day basis should be, right, a duty towards our Creator. We have to make it so. This is how we honor Him, and we honor Him truly when we honor each other, right? When we take care of one another, when we respect one another, when we help one another, that's how you truly honor the Creator, right? Because what happens is most people, and this is what happens with modern day Christians, Jews, and Muslims, they get so caught up in ritualistic prayer and the rituals and rites of doing things that they 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 tend not to take care of one another, or they look down upon somebody that's different than them, right? The Bible teaches that you're supposed to take care of the stranger at your gates, right? The sojourner or the stranger in your land, you're supposed to take care of him as if he was your neighbor, meaning as if he was one of your own people, right? So when we see even Europeans or other nationalities or people that practice a different faith than us struggling, we're supposed to help them. We're supposed to help one another, right? That's part of the Asiatic covenant, right? Ye are the children of one father, provided for by his care, and the breast of one mother has given thee suck. Let the bonds of affection therefore unite thee with thy brothers, that peace and happiness may dwell in our Father's house. And when ye separate in the world, remember the relations that bindeth you to love and unity, and prefer not a stranger over thy own blood. If your brother is in adversity, assist him. If your sister is in trouble, forsake her not. So shall the fortunes of thy father contribute to the support of his entire race. Blase, blase, blah. That's part of our doctrine, as taught by our Prophet Noble Drew Ali in your Moorish Holy Quran. These are principles that we're supposed to be living by. This is how we honor. This is our duty towards our Creator, because these are the instructions that He gave us. When you open the Bible, it's the same thing. These are the instructions that our Creator gave to us through our forefathers and foremothers. This is how we honor our mothers and fathers, that our days be long upon the earth. We honor them in name and principle. That's another thing, how we identify ourselves. Before I converted and became a Moorish American Muslim and practitioner of Islamism, I identified myself under a European name. Our forefathers were not Europeans. We still carry these European names: Johnson, McDonald, Harris, right? These are European. These are European names. We are in dishonor. We're not in honor of our in name and principle in name. And the principles that we follow, the things that we do, these are the things that lead us down, that keep us in servitude. We have our babies in these hospitals, sign these contracts with the state, birth certificate, social security application, driver's license, all these different things are these contracts, and the way that we practice things. These are the things that keep us in servitude, right? That's a deeper science we could get into. We're not gonna get into that science on this particular call, dealing with contracts and stuff like that. And it's not sovereign citizen talk or nothing like that. This is religious, because your freedoms in this country are protected by your religion and your religious practices. This is why this is so deep. But this is why, and it's very simple, but this is why it goes over so many people's head, because it's so simple. And nobody, especially our people, Prophet already said it, we stubborn, stiff-necked, and don't do nothing but at the point of a sword. We are stubborn, stiff-necked people, and we don't do nothing but at the point of a sword. Only once the sky is falling do we want to comply and get in line. By that time, it's too late, though. And this is what our Prophet Noble Ali came to warn us about. Because when you read the Bible, you read the Quran, you hear about these different people that were destroyed for straying away from the Most High, straying away from the principles that, straying after the principles that delude to slavery and destruction, right? So it says, um, it requires man to recognize his duties towards God Allah, his creator, and his fellow creatures. It teaches the supreme duty, right? The highest duty of living at peace with one's surrounding, right? But how do you live at peace with your surroundings if you can't live at peace with yourself? This is the science though. We cannot live at peace with the things around us if we are not at peace with ourselves. And when you look at the culture that's practiced by our people, we are the most hateful people towards ourselves, towards one another, towards each other. And you can only inflict so much hatred upon your own people if you don't have love for yourself, if you don't have respect for yourself. But respect and love for self are, you have to build this up. This has to be practiced. This is not something that's gonna fall out the sky and everybody's just automatically gonna love one another and it's gonna be peace and harmony. We gotta understand the condition that we've been in. We've been conditioned to hate ourselves for a long time now. This is why this message and what our prophet Nabu Ali brought is so hard to get hooked onto our people. It's hard to reach our people with this message. It's hard to reach our people with this doctrine because we've been conditioned otherwise. Strategically, though, it's not by just chance that this has happened to us. This has been a strategic thing that's been in place against us for a long time. And it's not just gonna come overnight where we all just running through the tulips and singing kumbaya and being at peace with each other. It's not gonna happen. This has to be practiced. This is why these principles and these teachings, this is why in our Moorish Holy Quran, it says, dear mothers, teach these lessons to your little ones that they may learn to love instead of hate. These lessons that we learn, these principles that we learn when we come through the doors of the temple are to be taught to our children, so that from a young age they understand these principles of how to love instead of hate, so that when they become older it's not a problem. This is why, again, this message is so hard to get through to our people, because we've been conditioned as we grow older and we haven't had these lessons. We've been conditioned otherwise. This is why this work is very simple. That's why the prophet said Islam is a very simple faith, but it's not easy. It's a challenge to convey this to our people because of the condition that we've been in for so long, right? It says it is preeminently the religion of peace, right? The word Islam, the root of the word Islam is peace. Simply, right? Even the root of the word Muslim is peace. They say one who submits to Allah, but that's kind of generic, right? Is simply peace. One who practices peace, one who practices harmony, one who practices wholeness, right? It says the very name Islam means peace. Simple. The goal of a man's life, according to Islam, is peace with everything, peace with Allah and peace with man. That's the goal. Simple, right? That's why when you meet, when most Muslims meet, they say assalamu alaikum, means peace be with you. Wa alaikum salam. Unto you be peace. Shalom, peace. When most Hebrews greet, they say shalom, right? Shalom means peace. Peace be with you. With you be peace. Because this is the goal. It's not easy to always be at peace with somebody else, because a lot of times we're not at peace with ourselves. We all struggle with different things. I get on these calls every Friday, and I talk and I do my presentation and stuff like that. But even myself, I struggle with certain things. We all struggle with things internally, within, because that's the real fight. The real foe, the real devil is within. This is a teaching that we learn in our Moorish Holy Quran, in our teachings, you know what I'm saying? You know, it says, this is coming out of chapter 3, the unity of life, verse 21. It says, the only devil from which men must be redeemed is self, the lower self. If man would find his devil, he must look within. His name is self. Verse 22, if man would find his savior, he must look within. This is an internal struggle. But again, we can't be at peace with one another and peace with our surroundings in the world if we're not at peace with ourselves as a people. It says the Quran, the holy book of Islam, tells us that the final abode of man is the house of peace, where no vain word or sinful discourse will be heard. The holy divine prophet Noble Drew Ali says that a follower of Islam in the true sense of the word is one whose hands, tongue, and thoughts do not hurt others. The object of man's life, according to Islam, is its complete unfoldment, right? Again, the unfoldment happens throughout the journey. We are continually unfolding the peace within ourselves. And it's always going to be a struggle. There has to be a struggle. Again, we all have our own internal things that we go through. Nobody can, judge you based on the things that you go through or the things that we all go through. But it's a continual unfoldment. And this is the object of our life because we have to unfold this thing within ourselves. This is why we on this journey that we call life. We only here temporarily, right? And it's hard for some people to say, oh, well, why are we here? Why are we created? Because we are unfolding. We're learning ourselves. We're learning how to be at peace with ourselves and with Allah, the creator. It says Islam teaches that man is born with unlimited capacities for progress. Islam does not support the idea that man was born in sin. It teaches that everyone has within him the seed of perfect development, and it rests solely with himself to make or mar his fortune. So our success, right, or our failure is completely upon ourselves, has nothing to do with any external factor, right? No person, no circumstance, things happen to us and we meet and come across people that help with this process of unfolding and developing. But it's upon us and only us individually that we're either successful or we fail. It's not God or some devil or anything like that. You know what I mean? It says the cardinal doctrine of Islam is the unity of the Father Allah, right? Being one with God, right? Even Jesus alludes to this. He says things like, I and the Father are one. That's what that essentially means. Right? The cardinal doctrine of Islam is, it says, we believe in one God, Allah, who is all God, all mercy, and all power. He is perfect and holy, all wisdom, all knowledge, and all truth. These are some of his great attributes, so far as we can understand, right? He is free from all defect, holy and transcendent. He is personal to us insofar as we see his attributes working for us and in us, but he is nevertheless impersonal, right? So this is where it talks about in the Bible where we were made in God's image, meaning in his likeness, or we have the same characteristics, right? Doesn't mean that we are God. You know, we because we not like that's but the characteristics are there, right? That's why it says that he's personal, right? His to us insofar as we see his attributes working in us, right? And for us, right? But he's nevertheless impersonal, right? Because he is infinite, perfect, and holy. We do not believe that death, decay, or sleep overtake him. Neither do we believe that he is a helpless, inactive, or inert force. Nothing happens without his knowledge and will. He neither begets nor is he begotten, because these are the traits of frail and weak humanity. The unity of Allah is the first and foremost pillar of Islam, and every other belief hangs upon it. Right? So that is one of the um proclamations, or one of the writings of our founder and prophet Noble Drew Ali, where he explained, you know, in only a few short paragraphs what Islam is. Right? It's the unity of Allah. Right? That Allah is one, and that we strive to be one with Allah. Right? And again, this comes through the practice of these particular principles that we learn, you know, through through the various scriptures. You know, so anybody got anything they want to add, or any comments, any questions, or anything like that before we move forward? All right. So let me go. All right, so what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna go into another reading. Hold on, y'all, 1 second. Give me 1 second. All right, y'all, I'm back. So this particular reading right here is called Moorish Leaders' Historical Message to America. Right? Again, Moorish Leaders' Historical Message to America. Now, this reading was where our Prophet Noble Drew Ali was going into explaining you know, our particular organization and what it stands for. Right? And this is very important, because there's a lot of misunderstanding about who we are, especially now. Like, and when you look on the internet, you go on YouTube and you type in Moors or Moorish Americans, you're going to see a lot of stuff that does not align with what we're about to read or what we've been reading. Most Asiatics, so-called Black people, that consider themselves to be Moors, they are Moors, right? But they're not Moorish Americans. They're not Moorish American Muslims, right? Because they have yet to conform to these principles and teachings, right? They've yet to really internalize them, right? And live them, right? Because what happens is a lot of people come into this movement with a lot of baggage, right? Meaning they come in with a lot of problems that they're trying to solve, and they think that the temple and the teachings can save them, and they can. Don't get me wrong. I've been through plenty of situations, where there's been adversity, and I've stood on these principles and I've had no issues. And I'm talking about, from child support to run-ins with the police, right? Being stopped, um, you know, traveling, um, schools, the hospital, you know, vaccinations and stuff like that. When we use these principles to combat what this government tries to force upon us, right? It, 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 there is a protection there, and that protection is there because of the First Amendment, right? Again, that's a totally different topic for another call, but there is a saving power that comes with this, right? But at the same time, with great power, there's great responsibility. And so, with a lot of what we see on the internet regarding Moors and Moorish Americans, you see them with different run-ins with the police, and they screaming this and they screaming that, and it causes a lot of confusion. There's a lot of confusion that's caused. Most of the situations that I've been in, there's been no drama that is so great that it needs to be publicized on the internet. Because with these people, the Europeans, the government, they they have no problem with those encounters that we see now on the internet going viral, because they know that there's no power in them. It just continues to promote the confusion, which is what they want, right? They would rather Asiatics grab a hold of this or that they see on the internet and go out there and try to do it and get jammed up, because it continues the system. It makes the system thrive, right? And I've most of them stuff that I see on the internet, those aren't successes, right? Any case that I've beat, right, or any run-ins that I've had that have been thrown out, that have been dismissed, I didn't even have to go to court for them. Right? I've simply submitted documents. I call and say, hey, look, I know there's a date for this situation that happened. What's going on? Oh, that's been thrown out, Mr. Bay. It's been dismissed. Okay, so I don't have to come. No, you don't have to come in. Only one particular time that I have to show up. And when I showed up, before I even saw a judge, the prosecutor walked me in the back. Right, I let the bailiff know. I said, "Hey, my name is so and so. I think I'm on the docket." He said, "All right, let me check." He goes over to the paperwork. He looks, sees my name. He goes over to the prosecutor. The prosecutor looks through the folders and the paperwork that she got. She waved me to the back, to the back office. Called me in front of, before all the other people. Waved me to the back and said, "So you got she's like looking at the documents. So you were driving without a license. No registration. No insurance." She's like, "Why is that?" I said, Um, it's not that we don't have. I said, I told her straight, it's not that we don't have, the car. It's not that the car is not registered. It's just not registered to your DMV, right? It's not that I don't have a license. I have a different document that serves as a license in connection to my society, right? And it's not that we don't have insurance. We just don't buy insurance from a policymaker under your government. She said, "What do you mean?" Well, everything that I have, and I showed her my ID, right? I showed her the land transport ID. I said, "Well, this is what we have as equivalent to your license. It's called a land transport ID, right? This is registered through our Ministry of Land Transport and Navigations, right? If you look at what I submitted, you see the license plate that we have, or the plate that we have, the tag. That tag is issued through our Ministry of Land Transport and Navigation. It's not issued through your DMV, but we have that. The ID that you're looking at is the equivalent of what you have as a driver's license under your jurisdiction. We have a similar document. It's just issued through our Ministry of Land Transport and Navigation, the same way your license and your tag is issued through your DMV. Religiously, as a member of my society and an official in my society, we are contractually and religiously not obligated to contract with you guys in that way. This is part of our religious freedom and religious exercise. which is protected by your constitution and your state and the national constitution under the First Amendment. You cannot burden the free exercise of my religion without a compelling government interest. What is your interest? There is none. I have no contract with you. To pursue this case, to pursue anything other than is a violation of my rights, and we will be seeking legal remedy for that, because that's our right as a people here. She said, oh, okay, Mr. Bay, I understand. She said, normally, in any other circumstance, we wouldn't be able to allow you back on the road without registering and having a license and insurance. But in this situation, I'm going to dismiss this case. I said, I appreciate that. So I can leave. You're free to go. I didn't even have to see a judge. I didn't have to be standing in front of a judge barking that I'm a free man on the land, flesh and blood, human being, improprio persona, juris, all that type of foolishness. I didn't have to do it. I didn't have to do none of that because it's not necessary, nor is it a demonstration of what we learn as Moorish science and as Moorish American Muslims. We simply practice our religion we simply do as the Prophet stated and honor our duty towards Allah in everything that we do. Because there's protection under this. We just have to move accordingly with what we do. Everybody looking for a way to beat taxes. I'm trying to lower my tax burden. I'm trying to, save taxes. Da, 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 da. But don't know and understand that according to the IRS themselves, I forget what form it is, brother chairman, brother Q, we've dealt with this. I forget what form it is, IRS form 4224, something like that. But there's an exemption, right? There's an exemption under Social Security, and there's an exemption under the IRS tax code for religious people. Hold on, matter of fact, I'm about to pull it up real quick. I know I'm deviating a little bit from today's call, but I just want to stress, what this is. Okay, here it is. IRS form 4361. Right? Form 4361, which is the application for exemption from self-employment tax for use by ministers, members of religious orders, and Christian Science practitioners. And if you go to the bottom of the page, now, again, one of the once you come into this organization, one of the things that we offer our members as a document is what we call a vow of poverty. Now, some people take that the wrong way and they say, "Oh, poverty," and I don't like that word, and it means poor and da 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 da. But it's a linguistic thing. The vow of poverty simply states that whatever income or whatever finance you make or you generate, no matter what it is, as long as you're a member of our order, you taking this vow of poverty, whatever income or finances you make is meant to support your society, right? In a nutshell. But at the bottom of that form, it says, do not file form 4361. So again, I'm going through this form, but we don't even need this form. I just use this form as a reference to show the power of what it is that we have when it comes to taxes, right? And the exemption. Because you'll hear a lot of Moors, they'll use the argument that they don't pay taxes because they're indigenous, right? Or that they're not a corporation. Right? And you could try that argument if you want. You're gonna get hung in the course. You see what happened with Wesley Snipes and the rest of them, tax evasion and stuff like that. You could try them arguments if you want. You a flesh and blood human being. You're not a corporation. Da 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 da. But it says, do not file this form if, number one, you have ever filed Form 2031, revocation of exemption from self-employment tax and for use by ministers, members of religious organization or orders, and Christian Science practitioners. So if you signed a form, because say you filled out this form and you wanted to revoke it and say, okay, I do want to pay taxes. There's a form for that. It's called Form 2031. It's a revocation. So you're revoking the exemption, right? So that's the first one, right? You don't file this form if you filed a revocation. The second one is if you belong to a religious order and took a vow of poverty. It says you are automatically exempt from self-employment tax on earnings for services you perform for your church or its agencies. This is why we need a um what's those places that you go to when you're looking for a job? A temp agency. Y'all ever heard of a temp agency? Right. A temp agency is like you go there, you say, look, I'm trying to find a job, and they have connections with different employers and they can put you on a job. But what happens is your check is issued through the temp agency and not actually the job that you work for until your probationary time or whatever time is up. That's why we need like a Moorish employment organization or something. Like I've talked to the National Grant about establishing this, but it's not necessary though. We don't necessarily need it, but it would help solidify, certain things that we do. But um it says no tax exemption applies to earnings for services you perform for any other organization. That's deep. So if you're so say we have members that we want to put on a construction site and we have a contract with a construction company that says, hey, we got people that are skilled workers, we want to send them to you to work. Right. Again, it says you are automatically exempt from self-employment tax. Again, this is the power of what we have and what we deal with as a religious society. It says if you belong to a religious order and took a vow of power, that's why that document is so significant. You, as a self-employed individual, right, you can use this, and you don't have to file this form 4361. You're automatically exempt, right? So, again, like I said, there's definitely a there's definitely a advantage to moving this way strategically. And a lot of Moors out there don't understand this concept and these principles because again, they're following principles and concepts that are connected to things outside of what we do. Right. So back to the particular reading, right? Moorish leaders' historical message to America. It says, in connection with the aims, objects, rules, and regulations of the Moorish Science Temple of America, I deem it proper to submit to you a brief statement of our organization, covering its inception, rise, and progress, and of the Mohammedan religion, meaning Islam. It says, which I hope will be satisfactory to you and be the means of causing you at all times to adhere to the principles of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice in your relations with mankind in general. I further most anxiously hope this brief statement will help you to more clearly see the duty and wisdom of all times upholding those fundamental principles which are desired for our civilization and for our posterity, such as obedience to law, respect and loyalty to government, tolerance and unity. So we got to understand too that when our prophet says obedience to law, he specifically means obedience to his law, right? Or the law of our temple, because we have laws in place. We have religious laws that we follow, that we adhere to, and we abide by, right? Just like that, any citizen of any nation has laws that they abide by, right? This is why, you'll hear a lot of times the government say, "Oh, y'all don't follow the laws. Y'all think y'all exempt from our laws." It's not that we don't follow your law. We follow our own laws. We have our own laws in place that we adhere to and abide by. So when the prophet is saying obedience to law, he's really saying, obedience to Moorish law. Or if you're just reading this as a person that's in a, part of another nation or organization, obedience to the laws of your nation. If you're a member or a citizen of your nation that you claiming or that you're a part of, you have to obey their laws or you're going to be punished, period. Right? When he says respect and loyalty to government, he means respect and loyalty to your Moorish government, your Muslim government, your religious, your theocracy, because that's what we are. We're a constitutional theocracy. That's our organization, the Moorish Science of America, is a theocratic, is a constitutional theocracy because we follow religious laws or the laws of our God. So having respect and loyalty to your sheik, your grand sheik, your chairman, the treasurer, just like in this, if you're part of a state, this will be the equivalent to the governor, the lieutenant governor, the comptroller, right? These are the people that run your government. As where I'm at right now, Ohio, the state of Ohio is run by the governor, his lieutenant, right? His comptroller, his sheriff, his attorney general. Right? These people are in place, just like in our government as an organization of Moorish Science of America, we have a grand sheik, assistant grand sheik. We have a mufti, the grand mufti. We have a treasurer. We have a chairman, etc. These are all equivalent officers and offices. So he says, we organized as the Moorish Science Temple in the year 1925 and were legally incorporated as a civic organization under the laws of the state of Illinois on November 29th, 1926. Right? The name Moorish Temple of Science was changed to the Moorish Science Temple of America, May 1928, in accordance with the legal requirements of the Secretary of State of Illinois. So given just a breakdown of the name, right, of the organization, it says the object of our organization is to help in the great program of uplifting fallen humanity and to teach those things necessary to make our members better citizens. So again, the object of what we're here on these calls to do is to help uplift those who have fallen and teach our particular members to be better citizens. Right? That's deep. Right? And when it talks about fallen humanity, we're not just talking about our people here in the Americas, the so-called Black, Negro, and colored, because we've fallen. Right? We've fallen and we've fallen hard, no doubt about it. But there are other people around the planet that have fallen too. Our brothers and sisters in Africa and Asia, in Australia. Look how they the example in Africa is South Africa with apartheid. In Australia, you look at the Aborigines, they've fallen too. Right? So it says a national organization with a Rotarian complexion as it relates to branch temples became obvious with the increasing number of inquiries from men and women in different sections of the country concerning the purpose of the organization. There are branch temples in 15 different states at this time. Right. So this reading was written in like the 1920s. So the perspective is that during that time, our Prophet Noble Drew Ali had temples in 15 different states. Right. And he said, since the work of the Moorish Science Temple of America was largely religious, the organization has legally changed to a religious corporation, and an affidavit to this effect has been properly filed in the Cook County Recorder's Office of Illinois, because prior to it becoming a religious organization or religious corporation, this was just a civic organization where our founder and Prophet Noble Drew Ali was just teaching our people civics, right? The basic fundamentals of being a citizen. what your rights are, what your duties are. Right. This is also addressed in our Moorish Holy Quran. Right. Chapter. Where is it at? Okay. Chapter 30. The social duties. Right. If you read that chapter 30 on the social duties, is really talking about your duties as a citizen, as a member of society. Right. It says, inspired by the lofty teachings of the Quran, we have it as the revealed word of God Allah. We shall foster the principles of its teaching among our members. This is our religious privilege as American citizens under the laws of one of the greatest documents of all time, the American Constitution. Now, you see how our prophet, he said that the organization was inspired by the lofty teachings of the Quran and that we're to foster the principles of its teachings among our members. He didn't say that we're to foster the principles and teachings of the Sunnah or Hadith. He said of the Quran, which is the big book. You know, it's the real book. Because remember, I was telling y'all, it's a lot of teachings and things that's in the Hadith and in the Sunnah that run contrary to the Quran. It doesn't make the practice of Islam simple. It makes it burdensome. You got to pray 5 times a day. You got to do this. You got to do that. You got all these different things. None of which are in the actual Quran of Muhammad. Right? It says the Mohammedan religion is the least appreciated and probably the most misunderstood of the world's great religions. This is especially true in our Western world. Try to understand what Mohammedanism stands for and some of the things it has contributed to the world. Right now, it's going to go into some historical context with the religion, which I kind of went into a little bit at the beginning of the call. Right? It says that Muhammad was the founder of the Mohammedan religion. It originated 13 centuries ago on the Arabian Peninsula, where the streams of commerce and culture met and mingled in the Middle Ages, where the markets of exchange were stationed for treasures of India and the products of the Mediterranean coast. So you got to understand, like, even when they use the term Mecca now, right? They say, oh, this is the Mecca of hip hop or the Mecca of basketball, right? When you use this term, it means like this is the center of where all of this stuff originated and happened, where it was really popping, you know? So the Arabian Peninsula was, and when you look at a map and you look at Arabia, Arabia is stationed or located in between 3 major continents or 3 cultural centers, right? You have Asia to the east of Arabia, you have Europe to the west, and you have Africa to the south. So in order for trade to happen between these 3 points, you had to come through Arabia. This is why the Arabs during that time, right? It was such a mysterious and mystical place to a lot of people from Asia, from Europe, and from Africa. You would go to Arabia, and they actually call Arabia, it was named Arabia the Happy, because it was that place of like dreams, and you could find everything there, right? The Silk Road led through Arabia to Arabia, right? Now you could get spices, you could get silks, you could get textiles, you could get slaves, anything you needed to get, you went to Arabia, you could find it. This is why the Arabians were such well-known merchants. Like Muhammad himself was a merchant, right? He was a camel driver, but he was a merchant. Like he used to sell things, stuff like that. And it says there, this religion was established in an unprecedented short period of 20 years, right? Muhammad started his mission, I think it was like 610, something like that. And by like 622, like he had done what he had to do. And by 632, right? Because he started in like 610 and he died in 632. So it's about 20 years that he was on his mission to spread this religion that at one point in time in history made up the largest empire known to man. The Islamic or the Muslim, or what they say, the Moorish Empire was larger than the Roman Empire and the Persian Empire combined, because it took over all of the Persian Empire and about 60% of the Roman Empire. And then had a little bit more of independent states under its, you know, imperial rule. That's and it's not talked about. You know, you study world history, they're gonna tell you about the Roman Empire. They make that like the biggest thing since sliced bread. You're gonna learn about the Egyptian Empire, you know, the Persian Empire. You know, you'll learn about the Mongols some maybe a little bit, but they don't talk about the Islamic Empire. They don't talk about the Moorish Empire, this Islamic Empire that was bigger than both of those empires combined, right? It says, and unlike many other religions, without the aid of any royal patronage or support, Buddhism had its Asaka, Judaism its Joshua, Christianity its Constantine, but Mohammedanism had no person of royal rank and power to assist in its establishment and spread. Because when you study the history of Islam and you read about the first caliphs, right? These are like the kings or the first rulers of the Islamic Empire. They were not, you know, royal people. Like they didn't come from royalty. They didn't descend from like noble families. They weren't what they call highborn. They didn't wear gold and, you know, finest linen and, you know, all of these different things. As a matter of fact, when one of the first caliphs after Muhammad passed, Umar, when he entered Jerusalem, the bishop or the Christian Catholic ruler of Jerusalem, when he came out to meet him, he didn't even recognize him, because he when he came out to meet the Caliph, because he didn't want to negotiate any treaty or any peace with the who at that time was Khalid ibn Walid, and I forget the other Muslim general that took Jerusalem during that time. He didn't want to negotiate with any of them. When they took over and he negotiated, he wanted to when he took over, he didn't want to negotiate with any of them. He wanted to negotiate with the Caliph. So when they called the Caliph from Arabia, I think he's in either Medina or Mecca. I think he's in Mecca, to Jerusalem. When he went out to meet him, there was a man on top of a camel, and there was a man leading the camel on foot. And he gets brought out in this it's like like back in those times they had the dudes that would carry like a couch, look like a couch, and he would sit on top of it and they be carrying it, right? He's in one of those, and he got red linen and gold and jewelry on and stuff like that. He comes up to this man that's on top of a camel, and he says, are you the Caliph? And the man on top of the camel shakes his head, said no, and points to the man leading the camel. And the cardinal, he looks at the man leading the camel and says, "Well, I want to speak to the Caliph." And the man leading the camel says, "I am the Caliph." And he's blown away. He's like, "What? Like how? Who? You?" And it's this, the description is that the caliph at the time, he had clothes that were sewn together. He had, his pants and, the top that he had was like sewn together. He didn't look like he didn't look like somebody that you would expect to be the ruler of these people that were about to that these people that conquered the Persian Empire and just brought the Roman Empire to their knees. Like you're who we've been like fighting. I was expecting you to have a crown of gold and to be, you know, decorated and all these fine things. And no, he said, "Well, why are you not riding a camel?" He said, "Oh, because he's my servant, and I only have one camel, and we take turns. It's my turn. It's his turn to ride." Meanwhile, behind him, he has an army of thousands. He's the head of the army of thousands. And when you look at his army, they're riding horses, Arabians too. Like Arabians are very nice horses. They've got armor and shields and spears and swords and they've got crowns and you know armored helmets. They probably got gold and silver and rubies and jewels on because they've been conquering different territories, and when they conquered, they would put the people under attacks and what they call jizya. So they would plunder sometimes. They would loot sometimes. Even though it wasn't what we were supposed to be doing as Muslims, but it happened. He's looking like, why are you not dressed like them? Like, why you? Because I'm a humble man. This is the spirit of Islam, right? This is the spirit of the ruler at that time, right? So it says today, this religion is acknowledged by nearly 250 million souls, more than that now, and extends over an area equal to 1/3 of the globe, right? It says from Arabia, it spread eastward over Persia, Turkestan, Afghanistan, westward across Syria, Asia Minor, Turkey, and southward to Africa, covering more than half of that continent. It found its way to India and beyond to the islands of Sumatra, Java, and Borneo. Remember, I said that in the beginning of the call. Persia, Turkestan, Afghanistan, that was part of the Persian Empire. Iran, Iraq, right? Right. Syria, Asia Minor, and Turkey, and then southward to Africa, right? Particularly northern Africa. It didn't conquer all of Europe, right? The Europeans, they started to they got their thing together and they was able to stop the incursion of the Arabs and those North African Moors after 711 into Spain. They didn't conquer anything above, France, so to speak. So it didn't conquer all of Europe, conquer some certain parts of Europe, right? It says to the early representatives of this faith, the world's debt is incalculably great, for it was they who transmitted the treasures of Greek literature from the Middle Ages to the Renaissance. Because when Europe went into the Dark Ages, they lost the ability to read the Greek philosophers, Aristotle and Plato. All of that had been lost. All of that philosophy and knowledge that was part of, the Roman Empire and before the Greco-Roman Empire and stuff like that. The Middle Age Europeans, the Europeans during the Middle Ages had no access to. They were illiterate. They couldn't read. They couldn't write. Even their kings could not read and write. Their rulers did not have a sense of law. Really, they had laws. Don't get me wrong. Especially like the Vikings. The Vikings followed. They had their gods, the Norse gods. Thor, and etc. and stuff like that. I mean, it's not Thor, but Odin. But they couldn't read and write. They were illiterate. It was only once these Muslims came into Europe, they were the ones that were able to translate the Greek and brought that science and philosophy back to life. Your ancestors, Moors, and again, like I said before in the beginning of the call, when we think of modern day Arabians and modern day Muslims, we get this picture of pale skinned people. You know, when you look at Arabia right now, you look at the king of Saudi Arabia. He looks like a look like Hispanic brother. You know, he's light skinned, pretty much pale. During the time of Muhammad, these people look like us, specifically because you got to understand. This is like a whole other demonstration, but remember I talked about the Canaanites that was driven out of that land into North Africa. These are Arabians. Because the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, again in our 101s, he gives us this degree where he said, where where is the Garden of Eden? This is key 53 of a 101. It says, where is the Garden of Eden? The answer is in the land of Canaan, in the holy city of Mecca. Because when you look at Arabia, you're gonna find a group of people called the Banu Kinana, right? The Banu Kinana. This is the same people that the tribe of Muhammad is descended from, right? Muhammad himself is descended from the Banu Kanana, and the Banu Kanana or Kanana is another name, or is the Arabic version of Canaan, Canaanite. That's why the prophet says in our 101s that the Garden of Eden is in the land of Canaan, in the city of Mecca. So these Canaanite people, these Banu Kanana, that were chased out by Joshua, that went into North Africa, these are Arabians. This is us. We the original Arabians. That's deep, right? It's tough. So he says that it is they who originated the graceful forms of which the Taj Mahal and the Alhambra, right, Spain, are the most famous examples. It was they who contributed to the sciences of algebra and chemistry, astronomy, and medicine. They who dotted the Saracen Empire, again, the word Saracen means like Muslim or Moorish, with the universities, and who built at Baghdad and Cairo the most renowned universities of the world. Your ancestors were the ones that contributed to the sciences and the arts and astronomy and medicine, and who established universities in these various different places like Baghdad and in Egypt, in Spain, in Timbuktu. And we want to talk about Yale and Harvard and Princeton and da 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 da. That's they late in the game. We've been doing this. This is the power of our history that was stripped from us, that was taken from us and attributed to others, where now we don't have a connection or remembrance of these things and who we really are and what we contributed to the world. It says, during those centuries of ecclesiastical despotism, when the Christian church suppressed all intellectual activities except those that were theological, causing the talent that reproduces to supplant the generation that creates. Again, it was the Christian church that suppressed all of this science, chemistry, astronomy, and medicine. These universities that our ancestors established, they suppressed all of this intellectual activities, which caused the quote unquote talent that reproduces, right? Those that copy, that carbon copy the original. Because we're the originators. They're nothing but copyists. They copied what we did. They reproduced what we did. They weren't the original producers. They reproduced what we did. And they supplanted the generation that created. We are the generation that created. They supplanted us. Mohammedans did all in their power to encourage and stimulate research in every branch of human inquiry. So all the arts and sciences and stuff, we encouraged that. We didn't say that's evil, that's the devil, to deal with, medicine and astronomy and, astrology and all of these different things. We encouraged all of that. We didn't try to suppress it and keep it down and keep it hidden and away from people. Right? It says the Moors or Mohammedans added to the beauty and grandeur of Spain. For centuries, art, science, literature, and chivalry flourished among them, while the rest of Europe was still in the gloom of the Dark Ages. So while Europeans were in the darkness of their ignorance, we for centuries were flourishing when it came to art, science, and literature. Now look at us. Most of our young brothers and sisters are in school, and they in high school with third grade reading levels. When back in those times, we were the ones that were translating the Greek philosophers into Arabic and then retranslating that into Latin and other different languages for other people to learn and study from. We knew multiple languages. We were able to read multiple languages and understand multiple languages. Now we can't even master the language that we have, our children. But we descend from this greatness. This is why I love Moorish science. This is why I love Islamism as brought by our prophet Noble Drew Ali, because what he's talking about as far as the Christian church that suppressed these intellectual activities, now you have Muslims that are suppressing these intellectual activities. So you go to a mosque or a synagogue in this modern day and time, or a church in this modern day and time, they don't encourage us to learn a lot of this type of stuff. You go to some of these Muslim countries, they are oppressing their people. They're burdening their people. We were never that type of people. Right? It says the Moors were the most ingenious and industrious of the subjects of Spain. Their expulsion from Spain in 1610 was one of the chief causes of decadence of that country, for both agriculture and industry fell into decay after their departure. So once we were expelled from Spain, Europe, and stuff like that, this is when a lot of what we had brought to life during the Enlightenment period or the Renaissance, it fell into decay, right? It fell off, right? It says Mohammedanism makes no distinction between high and low, rich or poor. It is like the sky, it has room for all. The Quran should be of interest to all readers. It is the Bible of the Mohammedans or Muslims, ruling over the customs and actions of over 200 million people. It is a work of importance, whether considered from a religious, philosophical, or literary viewpoint. In the promotion of the plans for the benefit of betterment of mankind, there has ever been some kind of opposition, right? And strange as it may seem, such opposition has come from sources where there were no ideas or the lack of courage to force attention to ideas. So people that have no, you know, contributing ideas to society were the same ones that were opposing, right, the betterment of mankind. It says, whether in church, state, or the social community, any attempt to do anything out of the usual way seldom fails to receive criticism, not because the course cannot be pursued legally or that it is unreasonable, but because it has been considered in terms as new. So when people say, when they see something like Islam coming, they say, "Oh, this is evil," da 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 da. But because they think it's something new that's coming to, you know, destroy what's been established. No, it's not the case. It's that the truth has been suppressed for so long that only truth can raise it up again. But when they see this truth coming, most are afraid of it because it looks like it's a new thing. It's not new. What we teach every day on these calls is not new. This is why we're taught that this is the old time religion. It's not new. Muhammad didn't bring something new. Noble Drew Ali didn't bring something new, right? It says the Moorish Scientific of America has received some opposition and criticism. The main opposition has come from certain Christian ministers. They have expressed themselves as being opposed to our propagation of the Mohammedan religion, possibly because the promotion of the Mohammedan faith among our people in the United States is considered by them in terms as something new. Meaning the prophet was saying that this promotion of what we doing in this country is not new. This science been here. And when you study certain indigenous Native American tribes and customs and stuff like that, you're gonna see Islam. When you really, really study certain Native American and indigenous American practices and customs and stuff like that, you're gonna see Islam. You're gonna see what was in the Bible. You're gonna see what was in the Old Testament. You're gonna see what was in the Quran. And these same principles practiced by these same people. Because it's not something new. It says, whatever the reasons may be for their opposition, the legal right to oppose citizens, individuals, and organizations alike for their religious belief does not exist in the United States. As bad as the United States is and how it seems to be, I'd rather be in no other country. Again, it's just that this truth has been suppressed. And what we bring as Moorish Americans and what we talk about on these calls seems like it's something new. It's not new. But the opposition to it doesn't exist here. It only seems to exist here because it's been suppressed for so long. That's why I told y'all I've gotten in situations where this thing has saved my life. Traveling, being stopped on the highway. Oh, we don't recognize that plate. What you guys some sort of sovereign citizens? What are y'all? No, sir. I'm a minister, and we're traveling on ministerial duty. The vehicle is registered to our ministry that's on file with your government. We're not doing anything wrong or illegal. In fact, it is very legal. Okay, sir. All right. You got any documentation to kind of? Yes, sir. We do. Here's the documents for the car. Here's our credentials. Take it back to your patrol and do what you do, and let us know how this is gonna how we're gonna proceed. Come back to the car. Oh, okay, I just wanted to make sure you guys, everything was good. That you're safe to travel up and down the road. You're all set. Take care. I wish the National Grand was on the call right now. He can attest to this. This is the last time before this that we were traveling in his car, which is registered to the Ministry of Land Transport and Navigation. I was navigating, and I was tired. Was like, I'm not gonna lie, I was tired, and I was kind of, you know how you get tired and you kind of, the wheel kind of go. You got to kind of catch the wheel back. I did that a few times, and then I noticed a patrol car behind me. He stopped us. Once I noticed him behind me, I kind of, I straightened up. I made sure I was doing what the speed limit was. I was staying in between the lines as best I could because I was tired. I put my signal on to get into the slow lane. He threw his flashers on, pulled us over, and that was the exchange. License, registration, da da da. Excuse me, sir. Just gonna explain a few things because I know you probably recognize the plate. It might not be anything that you've seen. Yeah, I've never seen that plate before. You guys got any? Where where's your here? This is what we have. Boom, 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 boom. Checked it out. And let us proceed. We traveling from our temple out in Connecticut, to our temple down in Baltimore. We got some missionary work that we're doing. You could take a brochure if you want one. I'm okay. I just wanted to make sure you guys were safe. I saw you kind of, dipping in and out the lane. Sir, I'm just really tired. I appreciate you stopping us. And as a matter of fact, he's gonna drive now. He's gonna navigate. And we switched places. I got in the passenger seat. National Grand took over to drive from there. Dude, let us proceed. No problems. Gave us back the documentation. Guys, just wanted to make sure you was good and everything checked out. Guys are good to go. No need to call his superior, call your captain, none of that. Because you got to understand, these people, especially the police, they're used to dealing with foreign nationals. They have procedures that when they encounter people that are here that aren't citizens, they may be here on a visa, on a green card, or they may be here on a diplomatic mission. They may have had their vehicle, shipped over by cargo, and they have them on the roads. This is prevalent in New York City because that's where the United Nations is. They even have they have signs on the side of the road where you park that has that. It says like, park here if you're if you're a diplomat, diplomatic parking. Da, 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 da. They know how to deal with different people. You have to know how to speak that language. Because they'll start asking you certain questions. Well, where were you born, and what's your name, and they'll ask you questions. And if stuff don't line up the way that the way that they're known to interpret the information, this is why the prophet said you got to speak with an intelligent tone, not use big 15-letter words and stuff like that. That's not what that means. You don't got to speak like you got a PhD. You got to know your law and what protects you. It says, without religious freedom, no search for truth would be possible. Without religious freedom, no discovery of truth would be useful. Without religious freedom, religious progress would be checked, and we would no longer march forward towards the nobler life which the future holds for the races of men. Without religious freedom, there would be no inspiration to lift our heads and gaze with fearlessness into the vast beyond, seeking a hope eternal. It is a sad weakness in us all, after all, to oppose our fellow men for their religious beliefs. And if there are angels who record the sorrows of men as well as their sins, they certainly know how many and deep are the useless sorrows that spring forth from such opposition. Right? Possibly love and time will cancel our ancient hatreds in this regard and prove that in mankind, tolerance is better than unwarranted opposition. Mm. In connection with our religious aims and beliefs, we must promote economic security. The preaching of economic security among us is by no means as widespread and intensive as the circumstances demand. No other one thing is more needed among us at this time than greater economic power. better positions for our men and women, more business employment for our boys and girls, and bigger incomes will follow our economic security. We shall be secure in nothing until we have economic power, because a beggar people cannot develop the highest in them, nor can they attain to the genuine enjoyment of the spiritualities of life. See, our prophet wanted us to be economic too. This is not just about being religious people and, praying X amount of times a day and, Allahu Akbar. It's not just about that. And, oh, I'm a Moorish American. I'm not a Negro. I'm not black. Da 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 da. It's not just about that, because we don't got nothing. We got all of that, but we don't have anything unless we have economic power. Our people still go to these Europeans for jobs. Still got to go see the white boy for a job. You need a license, got to see the white boy. You want something for your children, got to see the white boy. So-called white boy. Because we don't have economic security. We don't have economic power. This is the one, he said, the preaching of economic security among us is by them. He said, there is no more, no, he said, no other one thing is more needed among us at this time than greater economic power. We don't need more religion. We don't need more nationality. We need more economic security for our people. Or we got to go ask somebody for something, for a handout, for some money, to take care of us, to provide for us. It says, our men, women, and children should be taught to believe in the capacity of our group to succeed in business, in spite of the trials and failures of some of them. Trials and failures in business are by no means connected to any particular group of people. Some business ventures of all people fail. We have many men and women among our people who are qualified, both by training and experience, who are shining lights in the business world of all the people. It is a sad weakness in us as a people that we have withheld the very encouragement, support, and patronage that would have made some of our worthy business ventures a grand success, because we don't support each other. We go support, the Chinaman, the Hindu, the Indian, the Arab, the Hispanics, nothing wrong with anybody else, but we gotta support each other more than anybody else. And because we don't, this is one of the reasons why we fail. Right? He said, except in cases of actual dishonesty, discourtesy, lack of service, and actual unreliability, our business enterprises in every field of endeavorment should have fullest and confidence, cooperation, and patronage whenever and wherever they can be given. Read carefully the doctrines of the Moorish Science Temple of America. It contains our hopes, aims, rules, and articles of religion. Every member should have a copy. In conclusion, I urge you to remember there is work enough for all to do in helping to build a better world. The problems of life are largely social and economic. In a profound sense, they are moral and spiritual. Have lofty conceptions of your duties to your country and fellow men in general, and especially those with whom you deal. This includes such honesty and righteousness as will cause you to put yourself in the other fellow's place. Look for the best in others and give them the best that is in you. Have a deeper appreciation for womanhood. Brighten the hopes of our youth in order that their courage be increased to dare and do wondrous things. Adhere at all times to the principles of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. I'm your affectionate leader. I shall continue to labor day and night, both in public and private, for your good, thereby contributing to the welfare of our country and its people as a whole. Noble Drew Ali. Islam.
No.
Islamism. So, that's the meeting for tonight. It's 10:03. We don't want to burden we don't want to burden each other. And I don't want to keep you guys on any longer than we need to be on. We'll be back on hopefully I don't know if we'll be back on Sunday, but we'll be back on Friday. And I also think that I'm gonna probably start Either we're gonna have to have the meeting a little bit earlier on Friday, or we might just move it to Sunday for now. But I'll keep you guys posted and informed on what the move is. But yeah, like I said, that's all I have for tonight. Anybody got anything they want to add? Any comments, questions, concerns before we end?
Hey, I appreciate you for having me, man.
Yeah, I appreciate you for being on, brother.
Islam. I have my usual one thing to say. Noble Drew Ali told us we were Muslims, not Muslims, not to be confused. That's one thing that I don't want any new Muslim to get involved in, is having to think that you are Muslim. Not the case. We honor Prophet Muhammad, and we adhere to some of his teachings. But are we the worship like the Arabs? No, that's not our demonstration. That's their demonstration. We had a prophet come for us. His name was Noble Drew Ali. He told us how to practice Islam in the Western Hemisphere. That's why we were distinctly called Muslims, not Muslims. So I yield on that point.
Islam, more appreciate you.
Islam.
So we're gonna go ahead and close it out with the Moorish American prayer. And we're gonna end this meeting for this night, and we'll be back. Rise into our highest height, facing the east. Feet on a 45-degree angle. 5 fingers on the left, 2 fingers on the right. Repeat after me. Allah,
Allah,
Father of the universe.
Allah,
Father of the universe,
Father of the universe,
Father of love,
Father of
Father
love,
of
truth,
truth,
peace,
peace,
freedom,
freedom,
and justice.
and justice.
Allah is my protector,
Allah is my protector,
my guide,
my
my God,
guide,
and my salvation
and my salvation.
by night and by day.
By night and
By
by
light
day,
and by day.
To his holy prophet,
to his holy
To his
prophet,
holy prophet,
Drew Ali.
Drew Ali.
Amen.
Amen.
Man.
Peace, y'all. Appreciate it. Thank you, everybody,
Peace,
for being
Muslim.
on. Y'all be safe, and everybody get home safe. Safe travels.
All right, man.
All right, y'all.
Peace, brother.
Peace.